This week's project is going to be really focusing on the embellishment of the project and the final coloring that I did on it. Stay tuned and see how I did it, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this process. Thank you very much for tuning into my channel today. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a special project as well. It's going to be small. Not something I do a lot of on my channel, but stay tuned and see what I did. Again, thank you for watching. So as I mentioned, this project is going to be small, 6 inches in diameter and just a little over 3 inches tall. I inherited this wood. I bought a bunch of wood from an estate sale, and the person was a wood turner, and so I got this bowl from that. I don't want to throw it away. It's not something I would typically do, but that's fine. It does have some issues. Number one, it's dry, which is good, so I can work it right away. It's many, many years old, but again, it's small. So I'm going to embellish it. Stay tuned for that and see what I do with that. I think it's a good way to make a small bowl stand out as opposed to just a small bowl on its own. The wood is maple. It might have some eyes in it. Looks like it does. So it is bird's eye. Not a lot of eyes, but I think there's definitely some eyes there. There is another issue. Obviously, this person did not have a chuck, and they mounted it with screws. And unfortunately, those screws were fairly deep. So I'm probably not going to get out of those. But the other problem I have is right here. One of the screws that he put in broke off, and I can feel it. So I'm going to have to get that out. And once I get that out, I'm going to mount it on a glue block. So I'm going to remove that screw, get a glue block on it, we'll get it on the lathe, and we'll start turning. It won't take long. You know, it's a lot thicker than what I need, but a few passes and this bowl will be done. So you can see here, it's got a wobble. It's a bit not out of round. I didn't get it mounted perfectly when I put the hot melt glue block on the bottom. But I've got lots of thickness that's not out by that much. The outside is almost shaped, so I want to go with a supported cut coming from the bottom to the top, which will give me my smoothest cut. Now I'm round. So that's the first step. And I'm still plenty thick, so I'm okay. Here I'm just working the inside, thinning it out to match the profile I've already set on the outside. If you're a wood turner, you know that this is the most difficult part. It's getting that start. Once you plunge in on the rim and you've got a bevel, then it's easy to ride, but it's that first part of the cut that's a little hairy. There. That's shaped. I mean, it's still a little thicker than what I need, but it's shaped. Unfortunately, again, because of what I inherited, my shape was already set for me. There, that's a better shaped bottom. Again, not an ideal shape, but it's the best I can do with what I'm working with. Still got lots of thickness. Here I'm just using my parting tool to establish the base. I like to have a stepped base so that the bowl sits up a bit. There, we've established a foot. This tool I think I've shown before, but this just allows me to determine how deep I am so that I don't accidentally cut through the bottom. Now I'm going to embellish this bowl on the outside, so I'm just using my skew to cut a line at the top and at the bottom, and in between those two lines will be my area of embellishment. So the outside is shaped. I'm going to do just a bit of sanding between these two lines that I mentioned from earlier. But I'm also focusing on the very top and the very bottom, which is outside of those lines, because that will not be embellished, so I want that to be smooth. I didn't show it, but just to describe the process, I sanded the inside of this bowl, started at 100 grit, and I sanded it up to 3000. I burnished it with shavings, and then I used my abrasive paste. That is probably the most glass-like finish I've ever done, and there's no finish on it other than my abrasive paste. I'll put abrasive wax on it, but the inside of that is beautiful. No scratches, shines like glass. I haven't sanded this section here. Because I'm going to embellish this, because it is a small bowl. It needs something. So I'm going to embellish this with my Dremel tool, and then we're going to put a finish on it, a textured finish on that. I did finish this rim right here and this down here, but in between these two lines, that's where the embellishment is going to go. Well, I guess it's no surprise now. So the embellishment is just with my Dremel tool. I have a ball bit which turns a circle, and I just plunge that into the wood, removing a half ball. I'm going to go all the way around. Some of these circles are getting dark, as you can see. That's actually because the bit, I think, is getting a bit dull and it's burning. Once I've got that done, I taped it off, and I'm using India ink to put a base coat of black down over the whole thing. Once I did that, I just used a foam brush just to remove any excess, any that might have been trapped down into the bottom of those balls. So yesterday, I put the India ink on this. This is taped off, so the maple's underneath here. And it's dry now. And now I'm going to do a technique called dry brushing. And it's a little tricky, finicky. I have a makeup brush, and I have some metallic gold acrylic paint. I'm just going to dab my brush in there, very little on the brush, and then I'm going to dab it almost all off. And it's a fine line between dabbing it all off and getting too much. But there, I think you can see the effect. And I really, really like that. And, you know, better to have too little in the beginning, because I can go back and add a little more if I need. But I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but that's just a nice level of of coloring and embellishment. I really like that. It's, for the most part, staying out of the holes and just sitting up on the surface. It almost looks like a gold patina worn look. Just gives you enough color. I certainly didn't want this to be a solid color by any means. And you can see I tapped that brush and took all the paint out of it, but I'm still able to get some dry brushing on here. Now, one good thing is this is going to be dry instantly, because it was dry basically to start. I'm running out. I'm still a little bit of color, but it's lighter there. Depends on the light. It's lighter there than it is there. So I'm going to reapply. Again, just dip. very little, and then dab it all off for the most part, and then go back in. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly uniform. I think that's part of what appeals on this. There, I really like the way that's turned out. And that's it. That's done. I'm going to let that sit for a bit. It's already dry because I put so little on it. I could probably apply my spray lacquer right away on this. I'll give it a few minutes. That looks like a 100-year-old gold-plated pot. Once I completed the dry brushing, I just sprayed the embellished area with some spray lacquer just to seal everything in. And then the final step is remove the tape. Here you can get a real idea of the size of this project. It was small, but it's just a reminder that beauty can come in all sizes. Here I'm just showing the engraving on the bottom of my bowl. This is how I apply my logo and branding to my products. The inside turned out to have a nice glassy finish, which is really a nice contrast given the textured black outside of this bowl. The camera really doesn't do justice of just how nice this dry brush technique worked. I think it ended up with a very beautiful finish overall. Here you can get a good view of the contrast between the outside and the inside, and again, that glass-like finish on the inside. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe.